I'm Will Hedrick.
And I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Years and Timestamps, a book club podcast.
We're in the future, dude. It's the future, right?
I think it's present day.
Feels kind of future.
Like, give or take a year or two. But
it feels like give or take 20 years to me. I don't know why.
Maybe so.
You're probably right. It's very current. You know, it's not too far off.
I think the only thing that they have that's more advanced than what we have is that they've got an asteroid on the ISS already.
Oh, true.
You know, because that's not something that
we're using iPads and iPhones and Twitter still. And
everything culturally is still the exact same.
It might not be 20
They might
years.
have a little bit of a literal technology advantage just because they're able to get an asteroid or a meteorite bolted onto the space station.
Yeah.
That's the only sort of technological advancement that they have over us. And then some of the spacecraft that they start using towards the end of, them getting there is obviously a little bit more advanced. Though forced advancement because...
Oh, for sure. Because
the entire world's resources are being used free of charge, basically, to do this. So, they're able to make progress.
That's a fun concept for it.
Yeah.
What did you think of the book? When did you find time to read it?
It took me forever to really get this done.
Well, it wasn't easy. It was like 250 pages at least.
Yeah, it's a lot of... in the Kindle version, part 2 starts on page 227. So it's like 220 pages.
It's a lot of pages.
So yeah, it's definitely more than we usually read for a section, but it's also very wordy.
Technical, yeah.
And it's like almost too much to... Like, even in... Liza Lockamora, there were parts that I was just like, okay, he's just taking a million words to describe the scenery. I can skip this.
Right, yeah.
And then I would just go into speed read mode and skim, just see, okay, they're outside of the city or whatever,
Yeah. Did you do that?
But I wouldn't read all the details. I feel like you almost can't in some situations in this book.
Oh, for sure, yeah, because they're explaining what's going on right there in that room, and it's specific only to that situation.
Right.
I feel you there.
I sort of skim whenever we get into character backgrounds.
Yeah,
because they just introduced a new character at the end.
You're trying not to get too attached to anybody either, because you're like, I feel like something's going to go wrong and all of our friends are going to die.
Right. But they introduced this new character, Moira, right at the end.
Yeah.
And we had to learn everything about her in 3 or 4 paragraphs, however long it actually ended up being. And we know, where she's from, that she was poor and then went to school. And she has a grandfather a Jamaican grandfather that used to work on like a boiler ship. And just like all this stuff, we now know everything about this character that we might only interact with like another 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, who knows?
And I don't know that it's important to know that about everybody. I kind of get knowing it about Dinah because we get in Dinah's head. And I get knowing about Dubois because we get anyone that we get in their head, I get having the full backstory. But the characters that we just talked to, we don't need to know all of their degrees. The only reason I can
think of that being relevant is just because it makes you feel like you're part of the end of this world because you're getting everybody's backstory, which is what they're advertising as kind of this end message. Like, hey, everybody, record everything you do. Like, be super artsy-fartsy. Like, do literally just like whatever your passion is and just try to be remembered. Because most of you are going to die. We can only keep about 1,000 of us, and we're going to send about 1,000 of us on this ship. Because the moon, somebody blew up the moon. We don't know how that happened. The moon just blows up one day. The moon's now 7 pieces. All the scientists in the world think that in 2 years, there's going to be an asteroid shower that's going to send the world into oblivion. So we have to either go underground or we have to go into space.
Right.
And they didn't explore the underground option, which I thought was kind of a shame. But you probably don't want to have the mole people versus the aliens that come when like in 5,000 years when the Earth when they're said to reconvene at the Earth. But I did think it would be interesting to see how they've evolved over the years because they have a specific look they're going for. They have a lot of women because women are typically smaller and they're less like. They work better in like groups of women, like men that work in groups of men. They said like statistically, like I don't know. They said it was bad news. I don't know why. I don't remember why exactly, but based on like their research, it was. I guess women were more stable and clear minded, and I could believe that too. I would probably rather the future be a ton of women. Also, not to mention the fact that the women are going to be the ones repopulating, so they need to be we need to have the most options fertility wise that way.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept. I liked the beginning of the book when I started reading it. It was just like the end of the world because the moon exploded and it's going to come down in a fiery rain of death. I was like, oh shit. That's exciting,
Yeah.
But it's so technical, and it, like, when you're up in the space station, like, it's just like, is this girl going to live? Like, I think she's part of the final mission, right? Like, they're not going to take her off the space station, right? Like,
they decided that there was never going to be any returning
Nice,
anything.
good, because it's a waste of money probably to send somebody back.
Mm-hmm.
So and Doobie or whatever got sent up, presidentially forced. Oh, right, that's why I think it's in the future, because we don't have a girl president right now. So next year it would be a female president. Maybe this book was written like a year ago or a couple of years ago before Trump got in, and they thought Hillary was going to get in, so they thought it would correlate having a female president. Maybe.
Well, they do use her having, like, they refer to her using 3 names every single time. It's never like President something, or they also call her JBF or whatever her initials are. For whatever reason, her having 3 names is something that is important enough that we get told that she's got a 3-name acronym that people use to refer to her,
Hillary
conversationally.
Rodham,
so in Hillary Rodham Clinton is something that there's a lot of characters in this book that are analogs of real life people.
That's cool.
Like Dubois is supposed to be like a Neil deGrasse Tyson analog,
and there's the freaking Tesla guy that's, I guess,
Sean Probst in the book is supposed to be like an analog of Elon Musk.
Elon Musk isn't Russian though, right? This one's Russian.
No, this one's American. He was born in New Jersey.
I was looking up his backstory, and I guess I read the wrong one. Let me reread it. Right here.
Sean Probst.
A Russian cosmonaut, Tekla.
You're looking at the wrong name.
Tekla?
Sean Probst.
Oh.
I've said it 3 times now.
Oh, my bad. I wasn't listening any of those times, I guess.
Sean Probst is the owner and CEO of Arjuna.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah, the kind of wild, eccentric...
Ventures or whatever it is.
No, that's exactly an Elon Musk.
He's supposed to be the Elon Musk type. Though Elon Musk is South African.
Oh, okay. Really?
Yeah.
That's fun. Charlize Theron.
Sean Probst is born in New Jersey, according to the 8-page backstory that we got on him when we got introduced to him.
Yeah, fun stuff there.
Who else do we've got? So JBF could be construed as like a Hillary analog if she had made president. Dubois, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Probst is Musk.
Who do you think Tekla is?
Tekla's just a nobody.
A nobody? They kept saying his name, and I was like, why is that so close to Tesla? This guy matters.
Tekla's the scout, the Russian scout woman.
Yeah, the scouts don't ever make it back, right?
No, they do. A lot of them died.
That's what it was. But most of them didn't.
Most of them survived and did, their mission of constructing the beginnings of having, the Ark make it. But I don't think there's anybody else that's an obvious sort of. There's the journalist that is always wherever Dubois is at, pretty much until he leaves for space. Whatever I can't remember his name. It was kind of a weird name.
Dubois embryo.
He's sort of like a, not really, but kind of like an Alex Jones analog.
Oh, okay.
Except considerably less of a shitty person, I assume. So there's a lot of those. We're supposed to be able to relate these people in real life to these people in the book.
It was pretty easy. I mean, you could find somebody even if it wasn't necessarily as black and white as the ones we named. It was you could kind of make it relate. It was very relatable to just a lot of stuff that we experience and know already. So it was kind of a believable apocalypse. Right. Yeah. Do you think like the moon would come down in a raining hellfire? It sounded
the way that they explain it, it seems to make the most sense.
Right?
That if it exploded like that, in time, all those things are going to spread out.
And then recollide.
The white cloud, which is like the first step of it. And then at some point it will all start to, come down into the atmosphere. And if it's on that scale where the entire planet is covered by the debris, then if it's constantly happening, then it is just going to, make the world. This is like high speed global warming.
I've got 2 big questions about this universe. One is like I don't really see how or why they would ever want to come back in 5,000 years after the Earth had been rained down on bloody and hellfire.
Longer than that.
or however long
this
it
is
takes,
like an extremely long time. I think that he said that.
I don't know why they'd want to go back. Why don't they just find a new planet?
Well, because it depends on how much advancement they can make, because from this point, it'd be an actual impossibility for any human-made ship to make it to another viable planet in another solar system. If they have 100 to 200,000 years to have to make those sorts of advancements, then conceivably they could, but they don't have all the resources at their disposal to make those advancements like they do on Earth. Yeah. Because resources are excessively more finite in our current level of technology of space.
Oh yeah, they got to be as efficient as possible, recycling as much as possible. Yeah. Like their poop into fertilizer, into potatoes, into food that just as efficient. But they can't
even mine asteroids at an efficient level yet in this universe.
Yeah, they can't, right?
So they can't even get what things would help, whatever resources would be available to begin with. So there's no gaining, and it's something that Sean Probst talks about a little bit, though not in the same way that we're talking about it, where there's no gaining of mass in space at their current technology level. Right. And so if you toss out a tin can, then that's literal mass being lost on the space station that could have been something else. There's no creating new mass. And so they don't have the resources necessary to progress technologically enough to just leave the solar system, probably. Right. Even in 200,000 years, the speed at which they could have gotten to that point is significantly lower.
Oh, yeah, because of how limited they're forced to be.
And so why not go back to Earth and try to remake it? Yeah. Because it's in the habitable zone, or whatever.
I'm surprised there wasn't an AI element thrown into it, because it was so predictive of a future that I feel like there could have been an AI element where if they had tried to come up with an AI technology, there's the theory that it would exponentially learn because of how quick that it could learn. It would compound on itself.
Well, that'll definitely potentially happen at some point.
We could put it on that problem. If we figured out how to do AI in the next year, we could put it on the problem of fixing the meteor shower.
And that might be part of something that we continue to learn about or something like that.
That would be kind of cool. But
at this point, if we're assuming that it's no more than 15 years in the future or something like that, there's no real AI that exists in today's world.
And that wasn't my second thing. My second thing with this book is, how is there not a huge riot on Earth? Why is everybody playing ball?
They said that there had been some outbreaks here and there of discontent. For sure. But and they do, through multiple people's points of views that think about it, they do say that it's surprisingly calm.
Overwhelmingly, people want to work together and make.
So there's not the legacy by being able to say that it's surprising. It's admitting that everybody thinks it's weird, right? So you don't have to then explain it in a narrative sense. But weird. There's also the presiding conversation that happens once the initial shock happens of the world's going to end, is then becomes, is the cloud arc actually a viable thing or not? And are we just telling this to everybody on Earth for the sake of, one, giving them, something to be positive about, during their last 2 years of life, and two, to help keep them in line.
Yeah. No, I like that everybody kind of accepted it too. They're like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense that there's going to be the raining fire of asteroids in a couple years. So then they convinced everybody to leave their legacy, like I already said, through videos and art and stuff. And I was just like, man, everybody's just on board, which is cool. In the worst of ways, it's cool to see a fun universe where everybody does kind of band together for the greater good of the future of the human race, not necessarily their own future. Right. I definitely thought we'd get a little side story because of how detailed this book is, of some people trying to go underground, or people trying to get on this space station or whatever the case is, but we haven't heard anything yet.
Well, there's definitely the people that are gonna try to do something, and we've heard about a couple of them, like Ivy's fiance, who's a naval captain, has control of a post-nuclear event submarine, and its whole purpose is to be able to survive, a worldwide nuclear winter.
But just
and so he's going to take control of that whenever the U.S. government is dissolved effectively because the world doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
He is evidently going to be like, all right, well, there's no one who can stop me from taking total control of this submarine. So all the people that I can get in here, let's all try to survive underwater. And then Dinah's family is doing some sort of prepping thing she talks about with Ivy. They seem to be like seriously trying to survive it out in the Brooks Mountain Range.
Submarine seems like a pretty good idea. And maybe hiding in like the caves, like if there's a bunch of caves or something. Mm-hmm. That seems like it could work too, especially if you packed enough stuff and you had enough like
the main problem
soil in
is
to grow and you figured out a way to do lights and stuff. But there's so many. I feel like the earth would be shaking and there'd be so many tremors and that the cave might not make it.
Yeah. Well, even more than that is because the thing that's going to kill everybody first, or at least make everybody dead, is how hot it's going to be. Because it's literally going to like glass the planet and just turn everything into glass.
Yeah.
Because all of those comets and asteroids, or those are not the same things, all the things that are coming into the atmosphere are going to be coming in at such a consistent and blanketed rate that it's going to just superheat the planet, and so
they'll be burning up from the atmosphere too,
everything's
right?
going
like from coming into the
that's what I'm saying.
That makes perfect sense.
So everything's going to vaporize. That isn't rock, and so the potentially depending on how, and obviously they can't know how hot it's actually going to be to a little degree standpoint, because how do you calculate something that's never existed before in human observable knowledge?
We could do it.
So maybe it doesn't evaporate every drop of water in the ocean.
Right.
So there's a potential that a submarine works, but it's pretty likely that anything organic vaporizes.
I feel like a sub is an okay option, but it definitely would end. It's not an option that would last forever. It would only last
not for the
lifetime.
100 to 200,000 years that you would need.
However long, definitely not long enough to like have the people from the sub come out and be time to repopulate Earth. I do think that if there was a dope enough cave system, there could be a series of cave people potentially.
It would have to be so many miles beneath the crust, though.
Maybe, yeah.
Because you couldn't just be like 400 feet in. That's not going to change your temperature to any degree.
I don't know, really? You don't think so? The Earth is so...
From the surface of the Earth vaporizing?
I know, but it's so insulated. It's not like literally you don't go that far down into the Earth and it's already like 40, 50 degrees cooler. You know what I mean? But
that's a 20-degree difference. We're talking about several thousand degrees.
Well, no, I know. I'm just saying, but still, if you go down, like, wouldn't it be like...
You would have to go miles underground.
No, you're probably right, because how cold would it get? It would probably only get at most maybe like -10, and then if the Earth is so hot that it's vaporizing the water, -10 is not going to be enough to counteract vaporizing the water instantly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even on its best day, I see what you're saying. It probably wouldn't work out in the caves. If you could, no, you can't block it off.
And then even not. Like
and
that
the water would it would probably get dirty from the what's it gonna filter through? Right. Sorry, what were you saying?
I don't even remember, but it probably wasn't anything. But so there are people trying to do something because, like in any sort of situation, there are going to be people that just accept it and are like, okay, well, whatever. But then there are going to be people who fight it
for sure.
Like, well, we're not gonna do nothing.
And they're the
some people just think that way. Yeah, there definitely are whatever, but it's not prudent to the story at all.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the only thing that actually matters to the narrative, so far as we'll see through, is how effective are they getting as many things off planet as possible prior to not being able to being vaporized, and then what does the cloud arc and what's left of humanity do to with those resources for the purposes of, saving our genetic heritage.
Yeah. I like how easy it is to just store everything digitally. You know what I mean? Like if this issue had happened back in the 60s or whatever, when we had first gone into space, everyone would have been freaking out because we never would have been able to catalog the mass amount of books and stuff that we have and like all the information we have.
Right.
Like the the amount of information we could send into space now versus what we sent like back, that like the lunar telescope. What is that telescope or the rover? We sent something into space that's like if an alien runs into it, it's got like sounds of the Earth.
I think that's on Voyager.
Yeah. Okay. So whatever that is, the amount of information we could put on a new Voyager is just astronomical compared to it's got to be at least a relief in that sense, trying to store all of the written, and cataloged humanity's like legacy, and all the conversations that are not illegally, but that are taken from like the Patriot Act. You know what I mean? Like from cell phone records and stuff. If they just literally publish all records of everything on everybody, just like that would be so sick, dude. That wouldn't be sick because it's the end of the universe, but the end of their universe.
Right.
It would be interesting to have all like the mass amount of all the data of everywhere, everybody's.
Yeah.
Even the BS of just like stuff like like our podcast and random YouTube videos on like how to change your car door doorknob or whatever, or door handle.
Yeah.
And because they don't need that, they wouldn't need to know how to change anything from like a house on their spaceship. But it's interesting because it is part of the legacy of like what. What
was humanity at this point in time?
Exactly, and it's interesting. I can't wait to see if the author like writes into humanity like an evolutionary, not defect, but an evolutionary trait that takes on, because like he talks about, and like I've said before, one of the reasons they're sending women in is because they're like sending more women up to this space station is because they require typically less resources. They're smaller and just as efficient. So more efficient because they can do everything we can on less resources. So yeah, definitely send a bunch of chicks up there. That sounds like the best, like a good idea. Man, that's gotta be how that would have to affect socially too. Whatever men were on the ship, who knows what it would turn them into? It could turn them into spineless men. It could turn them into over arrogant, like almost kings because they have so many women. Who knows what it could do to the men that are actually left there.
Well,
I don't think that's going to be an issue that we talk about in the book, but it would be interesting to kind of...
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to think about
detailed,
that sort of thing.
I like to think about all those.
I don't think that it would actually really make too much of a big difference.
You don't think so in thousands of years? I think it would do something.
Well, I think, in 1,000 years from now, assuming that the world doesn't end, civilization will be different.
People are going to be marrying robots and stuff, and it's going to be so weird.
Even though we've got, the same, circumstances through our hypothetical 1,000 years, nothing's changing. Mm-hmm. But I think that ultimately, in regards to that specifically, I don't think it would make too much of a difference. There's going to be some cultural changes because, like we just said, there's always some cultural change. But I don't think that it's going to change the general attitude of humanity.
No, probably not. Especially with the records that they have
because
of what humanity was.
There's still going to be like a system of government because there has to be for any sort of organization, or not organization, any mass of people.
And I imagine there's still going to be
so
the same
be, like rules, and everybody's got jobs and things to do. So it's not like suddenly now we're just on a pirate ship and there's nothing that we have to really worry about. So let's see what happens psychologically. And it's still good. There's an order to society and things need to be done. So for the most part, I think that general civilization is going to be the same more or less. Socially.
I think so too. It would be interesting if something did happen, and if he did implement it in the writing. Mm-hmm. What do you think? I mean, what do you think of the book? Do you like it, or is it a lot to manage right now?
I mean, I like it for the same reason that I like a lot of these sorts of things. For the same reason that I'll find myself spending hours reading books in video games.
Oh yeah.
Just because I like stupid, boring shit. I guess.
Well, yeah, I spend hours watching videos of freaking like flat Earth, and it's like stupid stuff like that, and it's like, well, it's fun to go down the rabbit hole. I don't, I do it too. there's something about this that it's like all in a futuristic dystopian.
Yeah, but I would read a book on statistics, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, I don't think I would.
So
you would do a book on statistics?
I would read one, yeah.
That should be our next book. We'll do problems on the show.
But yeah, I just like boring stuff, I guess. Or things that would be conventionally considered boring. And a lot of stuff in this book would be conventionally considered boring.
Yeah, I could see that, I guess.
But a lot of it is kind of unnecessary, but a lot of it is necessary, like we talked about. I think whenever they're setting up a scene about something that's going to happen, and so it would be beneficial for us to know the very surface level physics of what's going to make it happen.
Right.
Like, it sort of makes sense. It's like hyper condensed exposition, and then whatever the action of like a large story would be,
Yeah.
But all the people stuff, a lot of that is completely unnecessary. I kind of get the idea, like you were putting forth earlier, that, it's a way of having you buy into the story being told by saying like, that it's the end of the world, so everybody deserves to be remembered. So we're going to make you remember this character or whatever.
Even though they don't matter.
Yeah.
But it gives you the vibe of the story, yeah.
And so I kind of get that, but I think that this is also an author that is just a little long-winded in general.
Oh, probably.
I don't know that is necessarily by design. And even if it was by design, I don't think that it's a good design.
It'll be interesting to see if any of these characters that we think don't matter, or any of these little long-winded long-winded things that happen in the story. It'll be interesting to see if any of them come to matter again later on. Like if he was kind of leaving himself Easter eggs to pull from when he was writing later. Because I feel like that's a writing...
yeah, but I don't think that this
tactic.
Is a story that would benefit from that sort of thing.
Probably not, because it's all encompassing in one novel. Whereas like Harry Potter, if she left Easter eggs for her over the years of the kids being there, then she could pull from a different book on a different year, which would be fun.
Also, there's no element of mystery, and this isn't a mystery novel.
That is a good point. I thought there was going to be a little bit of more of a thriller element, but I guess because there's
not really any reason for any of that.
Right? Yeah, just because it is the end of the world, like it's kind of like I have had a few moments where I've kind of just been like. I've really empathized with some of the characters, like it's been, I empathize a lot more than I thought I would, I guess.
Right.
Because I would probably go like, oh, while listening to the book. And
it's more like
it's pretty crazy.
Like a documentary of something that hasn't happened yet.
Oh yeah. That's a good way to talk
about it. That's sort of the approach
that
it has.
Oh, yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So having clues being seeded out, or, things that can be called back to, I don't see what the point of that would be, except for it would be kind of just masturbatory to be like, oh, let's reference a thing that I created in this book that you're already reading.
Yeah.
It just seems completely unnecessary for something like that to be happening. And so that's why I think that it's just long-windedness rather than any sort of like
plot development.
Yeah.
Do you think Doobie's embryo will be a main character coming up? Like he's going to be a rising star of the story?
It depends on, if, and I think that there is a time skip, and how long that time skip is. Because if so, where do we start the time skip, and how long is that time skip? The embryo may have already lived and died during the time skip, I don't think that that's necessarily going to be a future plot point. It's just like a way to have us further relate to the Dubois character, because that's just like a human part of his arc is that, he wanted to have this one last child with his new wife and bring that up with him as a part of continuing her or whatever. And so it's just like character building more than this will be a plot point later on.
Yeah.
I guess. But it all depends on the length of the time skip.
With the time skip too, it makes me think like, what if they had just, how there's the theory that like when you start going really, really, really fast, you go into like you kind of speed up time, but not relative to you, because like how whenever you're on a boat, like you can throw a ball and it won't just like fly backwards because the boat's going 30 miles an hour that way and you're throwing the ball, 20 miles, you know what I mean? So there's the theory that like if you the faster you go to light speed, that like you like time around you will go really fast, but the time relative to you would kind of stay the same.
Right.
And it would be interesting if they could do something like that with the space station, or with if they could just send everybody on their own pod, like just into like a 5,000 year loop, or how they don't know how long it's going to be. That's one of the big issues too for the raining hellfire storm. But if they could send the humans into like a loop where they'd be thrown into the future, and it only would be like a however many days or years, light years compared to light years is distance, not time.
Yeah.
Sorry,
but it's all part of the same equation. But,
right. But you know what I was saying.
That would be interesting.
I don't think it's
going
to
see
be
if they implemented that in any way.
I keep coming up with stuff that's not going to happen, but
it really does depend on how everything hinges on how long the time skip is, assuming that there's a time skip. So if the time skip is 100,000 years, then conceivably that could be part of how we're making it to 100,000 years. Is that the time skip is literally the figurative time skip that they do, and then we come back with them as they enter the relative time stream. And then like, okay, now the Earth is ready for us to go back to, or whatever,
If it is 100,000 years, you'd think that they would just create like something on the space station where they could just push the space station with like an impulse drive or whatever, like a little pellet, and it just like, and now it's moving through space, and because we're not coming back to Earth because it'll be 100,000 years from now. Who knows how big the sun's going to be, So it just, to me, it's like, why would they go back to Earth? I feel like the plan should be to drift mindless through space until we come upon another planet or aliens, right? No? I don't know. That would I feel like that'd be a better idea than just like sitting there until the Earth is done.
It all depends on, like we were talking about at the top, how long is that period of time?
Yeah, I know.
Because if it's only... Like, I just can't conceive of a way for them to get the materials to make a spacecraft that is capable of going in between solar systems, because that's more than 100,000 years worth of time.
It doesn't seem like there's any way they could store enough materials too, like enough base materials on the space station to even last that long.
Unless they were able to develop some sort of light speed travel, it would be literally impossible. Well, I guess not literally, like 99 to the nth degree % impossible for any sort of human spacecraft to make it to another solar system with the humans alive.
Oh, no, they would definitely, but I mean, they're not going to make it to the new Earth anyway. So I feel like if we're already not going to live on the Earth as we know it.
But the idea is that they'll be able to keep a population going. I don't think that any sort of human spacecraft would be able to keep any human population going into another solar system.
Man, I hope you're wrong.
The distance of that is...
I would love to think that we would be looking for a new planet, because I would not want to come back to this one. If there was a hellfire that lasted longer than humans have been here,
right,
I would not want to come back. I'd be like, no, the rocks can have that planet. Let's just go to a new one. But easier said than done.
Well, the problem is being able to have a spacecraft that can make the physical journey, and then not only the physical journey, but be able to sustain life inside of it.
Well, now that...
Because we can't even get a man to Mars right now.
No, I know,
that
but
would
time
be like
isn't
20
really,
years.
Time isn't really the issue for the travel, you know what I mean? Like, and we're going to have different generations and generations and generations over the thousands of years, unless they're like cryogenically frozen, I assume. But,
well, time is definitely part of the equation, because the wear that is happening on the ship needs to be repaired, and if they can't get resources to make the materials for repair...
and I guess potentially the repair would be a lot, or the wear would be a lot higher if there was travel. Mm-hmm. Rather than if it was just staying in the orbit, because that's the idea, right? That it's going to be right outside of the orbit of the moon chunks flying at the Earth.
Yeah,
right.
It's supposed to be able to keep its same relative orbit.
God, that would look crazy too, just from the space station, like on the planet surface. Like, oh man, we gotta go fix that when it comes out when we come back to it. Not me. My kids are gonna.
Right. Yeah, but. Yeah, it's not. It's in the current era, it'd be impossible find a new planet.
It's so easy for me to imagine a new planet, though, or a space, and for me to imagine a spaceship not really experiencing too much wear and tear in space, because in Star Trek, that's not an issue that happens that much, and they're synthesizing steaks every night. You know what I mean? From like the protein synthesizer, and it's like, man, how do they have enough resources to fill the Starship Enterprise indefinitely until, you know what I mean? It doesn't seem like they ever go restock on protein synthesizer fluid or whatever they're using.
We don't see it for sure.
I know, I'm sure they do it in the back.
But those ships are, they have crew, depending on, which ship it is. There's crews of, several thousand, as opposed to
a single thousand,
like the International Space Station right now has got like 8 people on it.
Right. That's a good point. And this,
and even then they can't be up there longer than like 8-9 months or something like that.
Well, and this human time, like this human time capsule or whatever, like that's what you call it when you bury a like a box.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this human time capsule is basically, it would just, I don't remember. I mean, it just, I don't know. I think, so, like, if this really did happen, it would be too hard to imagine, like, any future coming back to Earth in my head, I don't know why. It's just so easy to imagine, just like, if we just drift off into space, we'll eventually run into something in a couple thousand years. It'll be better than this.
It'll be a lot longer than that.
You think?
Absolutely.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You don't think we'd build up speed because there's no friction? Right?
Well,
I guess maybe we'd run into
but
other
you're constantly
planets and
potentially getting pulled into different gravity wells and things like that. So that's
that would be awesome if we could like navigate it, and we could just like we could ride the, you know what I mean? We could ride the what's it called, the
just whatever the gravitational pull is.
Yeah, we ride the orbit of each of the planets, like surf by carrying the orbits.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think that's possible, but.
Well, it's theoretically possible. It's just not something that we've ever been able to try because we are not a spacefaring species yet.
Oh man, what a day that'll be! You think we'll ever see that?
No, absolutely not.
You don't think we'll make crazy advances in space?
No,
probably not. It seems more likely that we'll just go inward rather than outward. Like and by that I mean we'll go into the digital world and we'll catch Digimon. In VR, we'll be able to be like, hey, Will, I'll meet you in the Digiverse and we'll go play Digimon, rather than where we were in elementary school, we were playing pretend and we made up all of our own Digimon and we were all walking around pretending we were the Digimon. We would literally be the Digimon. I see that being a more likely option than us going to space and colonizing a new space planet. I see us staying at home, creating an endless amount of VR worlds. Until something forces us out, like the moon exploding, Right.
Well, but that's, an argument against or about
how this book could never
what
exist.
The difference is in the public and the private sector.
True.
Because in the public sector, the government running all space programs, except for like now in real life, there are a couple of private enterprises doing things like, Elon Musk is doing things with SpaceX and all that. But so long as the government controls a thing, it almost inevitably goes slower than if a private company tries to take care of it or whatever.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Like in the time since SpaceX was founded, and obviously they were, built on the backs of the knowledge that NASA had built up for, 60 years prior to. But the rate of success that SpaceX has had in the time that it's existed eclipses everything everything prior to that. And that's just because in general, the government never does anything with any speed.
That's true.
But private, companies that can make these decisions a lot more streamlined.
They have a vision, of what they want to happen.
Can get things done a lot faster. And so what I'm going after here is, in regards to what you were saying, I don't think that we're going to be, in our lifetime, certainly, seeing any sort of space travel. Because unless SpaceX becomes a riotous success and other private companies start doing the same thing, and then all the resources go towards space travel, that would be the only way it would happen because the government's never going to get it done.
Either that, or if we're forced into it by some outside force, like the moon exploding or aliens or something like that. Some outside interference would then force us to go to the space, or the mass success of SpaceX. I didn't even think about that though. Like a personal amount of success coming from it. So people thinking like, oh, that's a new enterprise. Like
that's a product that we can sell that will make us money, so it's worth us investing.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good thought.
Whereas VR is a thing that will take off as it gets better because people will then buy it, and companies will see the value in making that their product, and so it goes off. The government doesn't control VR.
Oh yeah, and it'll be way cheaper, and everyone will be programming, and there'll just be so many people just programming like billions and billions of worlds.
Yeah,
that'll be great though. What a world!
That's the the difference in general in the sort of private versus public sectors, and what things are controlled by either of those, and their relative growth because of that.
What kind of things do you think we can expect from the public sector in this universe? Because I guess basically it's almost at the end.
We've only got one more year, give or
one
take,
more year,
whatever handle of days. It's because we end a year from the agent,
right?
And so their estimate is that it's sub 2 years of time before the white cloud starts, and then after that, nothing can come up from the planet at that point.
It could be unbearable leading up to it before too. Like that's when they think it'll start being like killing everybody. But there could just
the 2 year time frame is how long they have to get things to the space station.
Oh, okay.
Because at a point, once the white cloud is complete, or at least covering up the feasible launch sites, it'll be literally impossible to get a rocket out of Atmo.
Okay.
And so that's that timeline.
Okay.
And then at some point, the white cloud will become the hard rain.
An issue. Oh, the hard rain. Yeah, I like that name they gave it. It's kind of poetic. It's not as scary,
right,
as the Hellfire Storm that I call it. The hard rain. So, I mean, do you think we're gonna keep getting snippets of Earth, or do you think it's all just gonna be from the?
I think we will until the point of everything being over.
Until I think the white cloud, or the actual death of everybody.
I think probably until the point of the hard rain.
Oh, okay.
Whenever it starts, I don't think we're going to experience it.
Can we still,
from the point of view of Earth?
Will we still be able to talk to the space station? Like, we'll be able to come up with we'll be able to send them info and equations and new scientific.
Well, up to a certain point, yeah.
But you can send that through the cloud, right? It wouldn't impede them from gathering new info.
Possibly.
That's a potential benefit if.
Well, it's up until whatever the point is that they die.
For sure. No, I know.
And whatever infrastructure there is in place that gets the information up to them, because the technology could fail before necessarily humanity itself fails.
Right.
So I think that we'll have a point of view from Earth up until whatever that point is.
Yeah, I think so too, and I hope we do, because. Not that I really am super attached to anybody that I think we're going to leave on Earth. All the people that I got attached to, we kind of put up in the space station already.
Everyone whose point of view we're in, whose ever head we're in, they're in space.
But maybe Doobie's girlfriend, whatever her name is.
Amelia.
She's cool, so it'd be fun to follow her around still, Yeah. But I mean, other than her, there isn't really anybody left on Earth that I super care about, I guess.
Yeah. There aren't any other characters. It's just Dubois' family, Amelia, the president. The president, and then that's it. We know of Dinah's family just because of the interactions that she's had with her father through the ham radio, but we still don't actually know anything about them aside from the 8-page backstory we get for Dinah, and then the couple of interactions that we see her have. So there's nobody else to really care about on Earth at this point. So at this point, they could be all dead. The second stage might be, maybe it cuts to the point of Earth being done. And the second section is just us dealing with the politics of what is left of humanity. And then time skip, if there is one, is whatever happens after however long the time skip is. Everything hinges on how long the time skip is.
No, that is a huge plot device that I cannot wait to uncover. And I don't think it'll happen in the next section.
It's got to happen after the second section.
I think so.
Because there's still so much that needs to be hashed out.
Exactly.
Leading to whatever future humanity is.
Exactly.
To skip at this point would be... To skip a great deal at this point would be obscene. Like, maybe we skip 3 years or something like that.
But nothing like 5,000.
Nothing generational changing. I think we're going to deal with the same people still.
Exactly. Yeah, nothing generational. That was a good way to say it. You think they'll be remembered like how Noah was like 1,000? They'll just say like Dubois was 1,000. His legacy. That's what I always thought, is that it was like his family line, not necessarily that person living to be 1,000 years old. Mm-hmm. But I think they were literally saying they lived that long.
Well, not Noah.
No, just I think in Genesis it was those guys.
Adam and Eve.
Yeah, but after they were out of the Garden of Eden.
Like their kids, and then there's some society, but yeah.
And all of those people were living like a long time.
Yeah, they would be like 400, 700, stuff
silly,
like that. Yeah.
But anyway, that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this next section. I mean, what else do you think happened? Do you think there's anything else you want to cover of this?
I don't think so.
I think we kind of went over all of it, honestly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next section for next week is just part 2.
Just part 2. Yeah. I think it's. I think individually it's the longest part.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, I haven't looked at the page number breakdown since we decided on it, but I feel like I remember part 2 being the longest one.
Yeah.
I think it's like 260 pages or something like that. So,
okay.
Another long...
Just a little bit longer than what we did this last time, but... Yeah, okay. Cool. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. Read all of part 2, and we'll see y'all next week with that.
Awesome. Yeah, you know how to find us. Instagram, Twitter, @ears_stamps. dogearsandtimestamps @gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And please leave us a review on SoundCloud and the Apple Podcast.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah, and all the other ones, Google Play,
wherever
SoundCloud,
it is that you get it,
wherever you get it, and that would be greatly appreciated. And so we'll see y'all next week.
I'm Will Hedrick.
I'm Jordan Schaffer.
This is Dog Ears and Timestamps.